Okay, so I have this black and white image, and what I want to do right now is really try to make create a little bit more of a difference between his face and what's behind him. So it's actually pretty easy to do, and there's a couple different ways that we can go about doing this. Okay, so what I could do is I could start coming in and I could select him and then create some adjustments to him. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually begin by making a selection. And we can say that Photoshop very much is based on selections. So we can have certain things selected. And all we're doing is we're selecting those pixels. So when we do selections in Photoshop, we can come on over to our quick selection right here. And I have it set at 10 pixels, and I could say, I could even maybe up it a little bit. Um, and I'm going to just click. Now, what's happening here is it's selecting him nicely because he's different than the pixels around him right here. But what's going to happen as I get back to the tree, see how it takes that part of the tree, and the reason is because those pixels are very similar. So how do I go about getting it back around him? Well, I could, if I hold down, which one is it? If I hold down um, the Option key, I can come back and see how I get minus. So I can start deleting some of these pixels and I can start pushing this back around him. And it's Option on the Mac. I always forget what's Option on the PC. Hold on, I'll get back to you on that one. You can even just look it up, whatever it is. All right, so but still this doesn't work. Okay, so what I would do instead is I would actually go into and create a quick mask. Okay, and masks in Photoshop give you the option of selecting certain pixels very, very easily. So in order to get a quick mask, I'm just going to come to the bottom of my tools panel. I'm going to double click so I can see what I have it set on. So I have it set on here that my masked areas will be red with an opacity. I'm going to set it to a 50%. I'm going to hit OK. So I click this right here and there we have it. Now, so what this means is whatever is in my selection is going to be not have the red around it. So I want to get rid of this red and make this part of my selection. So this is what I do. As I look at my tools panel, I can see that this has changed to black and to white. What I want to do is I want to grab my brush, not my history brush tool, but my brush. I click my brush tool, and I want to put the white up on top. I'm going to up my pixels a little bit, and I'm going to start coming in and I'm deleting this area in here. Now as I see, I can come back and say, okay, now I have that selected. I can come back in, I can zoom it on in. I can come on over here and I can really just get a very detailed selection. I can tell you that there's certain times that I've been working in Photoshop where I'll find myself even working with like one pixel to get a really very distinct selection. So I can even come on in here. And again, we're really, really going to be, in Photoshop, you're going to be zooming in, zooming out a lot. So I can just select this. And voila, I have him all selected. Okay, great. Now I can come back and he is just selected. Okay, so now I could start coming in and making adjustments to some of the areas around him. And what I want to do right now is I want to grab my dodge and my burn tool, and I want to get my burn tool a little bit, and I want to come in and say, see, and although I would say even though these are shadows on this face, I'm going to put them in as midtones because in relationship to the picture, they're just much more midtones. All right, so what I want to do right now is I'm going to zoom it on in a little bit, and I want to just lighten some of the shadows, and then maybe I'll also lighten some of the highlights on his face. Okay, so I'm going to come on back and I'm going to grab this tool. And again, what do I have? We have our dodge and our burn tools. I'm going to grab the burn tool. I have midtones and I have my exposure. Maybe I'll put my exposure up to 25% because I don't want it to come out so quickly, because sometimes when it comes out too quickly, all right, so the burn is actually darkening those, so that's actually not what I want. I want to go for the dodge to lighten. Okay, so I went to the wrong one. Okay, so the dodge is going to lighten. I don't want that many pixels. I'm going to go down a little bit, but I can just come in and I can see that it definitely did just lighten that up a little bit. Now the reason why I'm coming in and kind of lightening some of these is because I feel like I'm losing some of the information on him. Maybe about, now that's actually lightening those highlights too. You know, so there's certain areas I wanted to just lighten up a little bit. This is actually lightening, it's reading those as midtones too, and it's much more subtle. Okay, so let's go back. I can go back in my history and I can see what I've done. And we can see, okay, there's the difference, right? We started right here. That's what it looked like. And as I come down to here, kind of is pulling out more of the detail. Now, I could even, zoom in a little bit here and come on back to my tool again. Oops, that's the blur tool. Again, I have my dodge tool. Maybe I want to come on in here and kind of just lighten this up a little bit. I'm doing it real subtle. I have the exposure at 20, because I just want to do a little bit at a time. Maybe I could even say, okay, I want to highlight, and I would definitely say this is a shadow right in here. I want to lighten it up just a little bit. And again, I can come back and say, okay, that's what happened. Sometimes you can't really get what happened until you come on in over here. All right, so now what I want to say is, now to make him stand out a little bit more, I want to darken the area around him. So that actually would be very easy to do. All we need to do is inverse our selection. So I could come to select and let's see. Oh, here we go, inverse. So now he's the only thing that's not selected. Now what I want to do now is actually kind of just sample this yellow and darken it, but actually it would probably be easier to just do that without that. But so you can see that you can inverse your selection very easily. But actually what I really want to do, because I think it'll be very easy to just select this little yellow piece of equipment behind him. I know that it's yellow because I can go back and say, oh, it's yellow. Okay, so that's actually pretty easy to do. So what I would do instead, so what you could do very easily without doing that, if I wanted to darken this, I would go to my burn tool. We just did the dodge. We could come to the burn. And again, this one's going to be midtones. We're going to up this one though, because we can kind of just run across this piece of equipment a little bit. Now what's great about this is as I do this, I don't need to worry because he's not selected. So if I run this over his face, it doesn't affect him because he's not selected. So I could just come on in and start to do that, and we can see that's the difference, right? So then that's creating more contrast around him. But really what would be the better way to do this is to deselect it, select, deselect. And because this color is so different than the things around him, it would be easy to just come grab a quick selection, and I believe that it'll be super easy to select that piece. So there it is. It was super duper easy to select. Now, what else you could do too when you have a selection is you could come into image adjustments and you could work with, let's see. You could work with a couple of other things. We could come in to hue saturation, and you could come on down lightness, darkness, right? So you could play around with this even right in here. We'll hit OK. We'll deselect, and let's see what this looks like. Right, so a little bit different, not so much, but there we have it. We can come on in and make selections and just alter certain areas. Okay, so now let's say that I wanted to see a before and after. How would I go about creating if I wanted to show a before and after? Well, first thing I need to do is I need to, and my before image is actually a color image. So what I would need to do is I would need to change my size of this, and it's super easy to do. I'll come into image, I'll come to, instead of image size, my image size is right here, and my image size, you can see it, it's 300 pixels. Now, you'll find that the higher the resolution of your image, the easier it'll be and the more you can do to the image. So, all right, so I don't want image size though. I want to come to image and I want to come to canvas size. And what I want to do is I want to up the size of this. So because I could do one of two things. I could place them next to one another, but I'm going to place this one up over top of this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double the height. So I'm going to come in and say, okay, I want this to be 18, and I'm going to say okay. And what I did was I clicked that up arrow because I wanted it to add a box to here. Now, all I need to do now is just come and grab my black arrow, and I can save this, and I could put this right down below. I can zoom it on in. Now I have a before and an after. Now when you're all done your projects in Photoshop too, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to flatten them. So I can now come in, I can come to flatten my image, and I can see now it's all in one layer. And what that does is it actually reduces the file size. Then I'm going to come to File, Save As, and if I wanted it to send it to someone, we can look at these different file extensions. We have a Photoshop document, a GIF, an EPS. If I wanted to send this to someone, and really when we work with photographs, JPEGs really provide us with the best resolution, I would just make it a JPEG, give it a name, and I will hit save. Now what happens here too is you can see that it gives me the option of changing this. I can see this is 8.3 megabytes, so I can make it medium, and then let's see how big it is. It tells now it's down to 1.4 megabytes, which is much better. And again, why would we want to go to a JPEG too? If we're sending it, first of all, a couple of reasons. If we're sending to someone who doesn't have Photoshop on their computer, anyone can open a JPEG. Okay, now you're going to want to save it as a PSD file. So let's say that I was, in the middle of working on this. I could come to File, Save As, and I wanted to keep working on it, and I would save it as a PSD if I wanted to be able to open it back up and see all of my layers. Okay, so there we have it. A JPEG again gives us a smaller file, and I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening.